Does it feel like every time you bring something up with your partner, they get defensive? You're not attacking, you're trying to talk, and suddenly the conversation shifts into pushback, shutdown, or blame. And if you keep running into defensiveness in your marriage, it's not necessarily because your partner doesn't care. It may be because something deeper is being protected. Today, we're unpacking what defensiveness is really about and how to lower it without walking on eggshells. Stay with us, because once you understand what defensiveness protects, you stop escalating it. If you've ever found yourself thinking, why do we keep having the same argument, or why does connection feel harder than it used to, you're not alone. Welcome to Marriage, Intimacy and Healing with Andrew and Lara.
We're a husband and wife team, blending science-based coaching and clinical nervous system insight to help couples understand what's really happening underneath conflict, distance, and emotional shutdown.
I'm Lara. I'm an ICF PCC certified coach and educator.
And I'm Andrew, a licensed physical therapist specializing in body, mind, heart integration with extensive experience helping high-performing individuals navigate stress, communication, and emotional regulation.
Together, we help you recognize the patterns that pull you apart and offer practical, grounded shifts that bring you back into connection. Let's dive into today's episode. So what defensiveness or fear of defensiveness in your partner might feel like for you is the fear of bringing something up, because you know every time you do, you get a certain reaction from your spouse, and so you start to hesitate before you bring it up, or you feel dismissed because the other person, your spouse, was defensive with you, so therefore you feel like, well, what I have to say, it doesn't matter, and it gets dismissed. Or you feel like a nag, you feel like, I am such a pain because every time I bring it up, I'm just getting eye rolls, which is what defensiveness can look like. Or I'm getting the sigh like from my partner, very exaggerated version of it. But that can make you feel dismissed, or like you're being a nag because you're getting these really strong reactions. Or you could feel like you're constantly being criticized because every time you try and communicate something, you get met with, oh, you're so needy, or it's the same problem with you, this is all about you, or whatever the defensiveness looks like in your marriage. And a little dialogue of what it might actually sound like in your marriage is, person A, why didn't you call? B, why are you always on me? A hears, you don't matter. You're not important right now. And B hears, you're failing. So can you see what's happening is this defensiveness is actually creating these false messages. And there's an emotional layer that is going on underneath. And quite often it's shame. Shame is an emotion that is telling us something. And we miss it with the defensiveness. Defensiveness is a protective thing. We'll break it down for you more. But the emotional layer could be fear of inadequacy, fear that I'm failing you, fear of exposure, like I don't want to be found out for certain behaviors that I know in myself are wrong, but I'd rather not have someone else call them out. And these things are often the emotion of shame. So what's actually happening underneath is quite often a defensiveness loop, and couples think things like, they don't care. Like, I might think, Andrew just doesn't care, that's why he's being defensive. It just comes across like dismissive. But in reality, he could be feeling really attacked. Your spouse might be feeling really attacked, and it comes back at you as defensiveness. Research actually shows that defensiveness is one of the strongest predictors of relational erosion because it blocks repair attempts. So you think about it, every time you're met with defensiveness, rather than maybe curiosity, that defensiveness can block the repair that needs to happen, or maybe the message that you're trying to get across to your partner.
And sometimes this is in very small arguments or small conversations that you don't really realize there's a lot more going on. So it could be a small reaction of like, oh, I've been so busy. But in saying that to a request from my wife, I could just shut all that whole thing down and she could hear, I'm too busy for that important thing you've raised. And it can sound small, and she doesn't want to raise anything, so she stays in a place of like, oh, it doesn't matter to him, he's too busy for this, I'll just have to manage it on my own. And so there's a level of intimacy that we're missing if we don't kind of listen into that. So the small things can matter, and the small things can be a big thing, and we can create more intimacy. Or the small things we can just manage on a surface level, and we never quite dive deeper into something much better. So let's listen to our body. So defensiveness and criticism, let's say that. Criticism registers really as threat. Now, we've talked about lots of emotions. So it could be that, why didn't you call? That I can feel my wife's hurt when she says that. Or she says something else to me and I feel hurt or sad. And then I don't like that. That's not a nice emotion to feel. Mm-hmm. So, boom, defenses come up. So it's a threat. There's a threat towards my happiness for the day and my sense of feeling chilled after work, or the middle of my day when we call on the phone or something. So the emotions can take us there, and this will be completely individual. This could be anger rising up, and that'll feel a lot more like some heat rising, like a rising thing to my throat a bit that you'll feel that it's hard to manage. Shame can definitely feel a lot more deep and a lot more lower. Like when you're feeling sad, it'll feel low, like, oh, something within me is just sinking. The response to defensiveness can feel this like trickle in the back of your neck. That's all to do with this defensiveness posture, shortness of breath, and your threat mechanism kicking in to say, there's a threat. I've got to go and deal with like a tiger coming towards the household, and I've got to protect my family. And there's the same thing with your emotions. And so that like prick in the back of the neck, or that feeling that something's trickling up there, is your nervous system going hyper aware to things going on. So if you're cueing to this and go, that's sometimes what I get, or it might be defensiveness at work, and it might be colleagues coming to you. Just if you register this, then you'll be much, much, much better at home, much, much better at work, all of those things. You get a narrowed listening, you get shortness of breath, you're feeling this tightness in your chest, or this sense of restriction around you. And that's all the nervous system prioritizing protection in your body rather than emotional curiosity.
And shame and these things, they're all a message. Like shame is really saying, oh, I've let somebody down, I've hurt somebody, I need to maybe make that better, is the message of shame. But sometimes that's hard to hear because we feel like we've disappointed someone. An example of this in Andrew and my marriage was, for a really long time in our marriage, he would be unreliable as to what time he would get home from work. And I just wanted a time, because at the time I had little children, and to some extent him coming home, I'm like, I need help at the end of the day. Between 5 and 7, it's crazy. And I didn't really have a sense of exactly when he'd come home. So I would be at him, just angry at him, like, you said you'd be home at 6:15 and now it's 7 and I haven't heard from you. And Andrew would almost always get defensive, always. So what was coming up for you when I was saying that?
In that season, I knew that she was overloaded. So there was compounding things that I didn't want to go to her. And this is just my mechanism here. Letting her down was a huge thing that I found a whole lot of pain about. And a whole heap of shame about. And I couldn't manage it well. So if she was let down by me, I went into a shame spiral, but I felt a whole load of emotions that I just didn't really want to broach. So I left it and just, I knew that I did my best and I provided for my family and I'm a good person. But she just wanted a time. So navigating through a bit of that, and for us to kind of share on that level a good few times, to get just a little sense of her knowing, oh, that's coming up for you. That's a lot. So I just want to know a time, and there was a space where I could let her down, or I realized that it wasn't letting her down. It was just communicating. So there was a whole load of things that I was in this sense of like, I've got to keep her world perfect and wonderful and boxed in and this, like I'm this knight in shining armor and perfect. but she really just wants to get it all past that so that we're just on the same page.
So we're going to give you some tools to help you, and one of those is a soft startup tool. So you could replace accusation with vulnerability. So instead of "you are always doing this," it could be "I'm actually feeling really alone, and I really..." In the case of with Andrew, I was like, "You didn't tell me what time you're going to be home." I could have said something like, "I'm just really drowning with 2 little kids at home, and when you're late and I was expecting you at 6, I had my hopes up. And when you're 45 minutes after that, I just feel crushed because the whole time I was really looking forward to seeing you and really looking forward to some help with the kids." And that's just an example of how I could have been vulnerable rather than sort of in the accusation mode, which is a great way to flip things around and get what you need or communicate what you need from your partner. And when to do this is at the beginning of difficult conversations. It's just flip that accusation for vulnerability. The sentence, I felt alone when that happened, can actually be a nice one to just put in your toolkit. I felt alone when that happened. Or when you were late home, I felt really alone. I felt like you didn't care about me enough
honestly,
to text me.
If I take myself back to that season of life, I would probably still feel a little criticized, attacked, and not understood, and I feel the sense of defensiveness rise up in me. And so that's equally important for the other person to then process that, get there, and then respond in a better way. So I'm not just dealing with these emotions or reacting to the emotions, reacting in that place, rather than just hearing her and saying, "Oh, that sucks," and I can't solve that for her. That's so many reasons that she's feeling where she is, and she needs me just to be with her and just to say, "Oh, that sucks."
And when we don't feel heard, quite often we begin to stack. We're stacking complaints. So it sounds like you're late home, you were doing this yesterday, and then another complaint comes. And
you
then
always
another.
do it.
And then on top of that, I'm also upset about this thing, and I'm upset about this, and I'm upset that you didn't help me stack the dishwasher. And then we start stacking all of our list of things we're angry about. But really it comes back to the one thing: I felt alone when that happened. So being able to have that soft startup and replace the accusation with vulnerability is really great, because it works, because when you do a soft startup, it lowers that perceived attack in the other person and helps them not go into attack mode and into listen mode, which is ultimately what we want. So these little things are tiny tools that really pack a punch when it comes to the way we communicate with each other.
And on the receiving end of that, for our second tool, is on the person on the other side of that initial response, is to respond in a way that isn't into that defensive place. And the first step would try and think of this: acknowledge the emotion before defending yourself. So we're made to defend ourselves, as in we are wired that way. And like I talked about, our nervous system is reacting that way when they're coming with emotion, or more so
perceived
if they've
threat,
the things and they've just come with me with all this a lot more threatening words. So it's easy when she's come to me in a better way, like we just talked about. If we can respond to the emotion rather than defending ourselves initially, that gets you into the mindset of, hey, okay, I'm receiving that and I'm hearing you, and we are seeing and hearing each other rather than just defending. You would do this immediately when your person's expressing some hurt or some emotion that they're feeling. So things you could say literally are, "I can see why you're hurt," or just simply, "Oh, I hear you." Oh. Or like I said before, "Oh, that sucks." And they can just feel really heard, and you're giving that just half a second towards just validating that. It's super important. The big but or the mistake you'd make is by putting but in there. "Oh, I hear you, but you got to see my side. I was doing this and this and this and this and this." And any of that just does not help. But is not a useful thing at all, because you're then trying to say, "But look at me, look at me, look at me." So you're putting too much into there. She wants to hear my side, but she wants to feel heard, and she wants to feel that connection first. Validation reduces that physiological threat. And so just stay with that validation. And it might feel uncomfortable, but the more and more you do it, you just feel more connected.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're building a team, and it gets easier very, very quickly.
It gets so much easier. It's so funny because we think I have to defend myself. So we go into I hear you, but that but is going to actually escalate the fight. You will get your turn. You just need to pause and let their emotions feel heard and seen. Then after that, you've oohed the other person, which is where you sit and just and you know, I hear you. It might be some not even sentences, but just nodding or acknowledging with sound. That sounds hard, but really authentically hear the other person. That doesn't mean that they're right. That doesn't mean it's not about right and wrong. Hear the emotion. Then after that, you can go into swapping over and communicating your need, because we're not saying that you don't get to your turn. It's just picking the timing of your turn, because defensiveness is, it's a tricky one. It's such a tricky one.
But give you that advice as a husband with, a wife with often an ease to express emotions so well, when I've been a long journey to get there. But validation is just so powerful. It quickly changes the whole thing towards one of connection and being seen and heard, and just a wonderful connection rather than defensiveness. A wise husband once said, "I didn't realize she wasn't attacking me. She was asking for leadership and reassurance."
Yeah. So in our example,
shift in our example changed everything.
It did. It changed everything. It was like, I want to just know what time you're going to be home. And if you're not going to be home at that time, I just want to know that I matter enough to text me and let me know. And that's reassurance. So I didn't need the defensiveness. I didn't need the excuses. I needed the reassurance. And that shift changed everything for us. And Andrew's great now. He is... If he says he's going to be home at a certain time, he's home at a certain time. We've really changed that, and that's been great for me.
Yeah, and I've just realised if something happens at the end of my day and things all escalate, then I just communicate, and it's good with her. It's just communicate what you're going to do.
Yeah, that's right. Defensiveness isn't the enemy, but unseen shame can be quite threatening to your relationship, because when you don't identify that you're actually in a shame spiral, it can cause things to escalate and you get on the defensive rather than actually hearing the emotion and getting out of that accusation into vulnerability. So a reflection here is, you could ask yourself, what does my partner think I'm saying about them right now when they're looking at you with that face? What do they think I'm saying about them right now? Get curious about that, and you'll be amazed, because the messages that we hear in each other, that, when you start to hear beneath the words and the tone and all of that, it's quite remarkable, because sometimes they might seem so silly, but it's just emotion that needs to be processed and heard. And once it's released and you've cleared the limbic system and you've released that emotion, you are able to have a conversation and move forward, and your life's going to be so much better for it and so much happier for it. Next week, we're going to be talking about resentment and the quiet distance that a lot of couples miss. See you next week.
See you next week.
Thanks for joining us on today's Marriage, Intimacy and Healing. If this episode supported you, we'd love for you to download our free 3-minute BMH marriage reset at andrewandlara.com. It's the quickest way to shift out of stress and back into connection. And for deeper support and to explore our resources and coaching, you can find everything at andrewandlara.com.
Before you go, following the show or sharing this episode with another couple really helps more people find this kind of support. And we're so grateful when you do.
We're Andrew and Lara, and we'll see you next week.